For an NFL team to compete, they either have to have an elite Hall of Fame level quarterback, a truly historic defense, or in some rarer cases, both. And if you look at the past 10 teams that have won the Super Bowl, starting with the 2012 Ravens, they didn't have a Hall of Fame level quarterback in Joe Flacco, but for a 4-game span, Flacco played at that level as he was phenomenal and had an 11-0 touchdown interception ratio and led teams that beat both Peyton Manning and Tom Brady led teams on their way to a victory in Super Bowl 47. And of course, we know all about the team that won the Super Bowl the next year with the Legion of Boom in Seattle, as they allowed 8 points in their Super Bowl victory over the Broncos, and you get the point. A lot of these teams had Tom Brady on them, and even for the outliers like the 2012 Ravens and the 2017 Eagles, their quarterbacks stepped up when they needed them to, and for a few short games, both Joe Flacco and Nick Foles, BDN, played at truly elite levels. Foles led an offense that put up a combined 79 points in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl. And how that ties into today's video is the Los Angeles Chargers are doing absolutely everything right in order to win a championship and to have star quarterback Justin Herbert eventually hoist the Lombardi the way we have seen teams do before. This goes back a couple of years and even as recent as a couple of days ago as I make this video. If in the event they do not win a Super Bowl over the next couple of years, I will vouch for what they've done and stand with every decision they've made so far over the past few years, and we're going to dive into everything, so without further ado, let's begin. And it all starts in the trenches, as every team needs at least one of each of these, and if you don't have one, then you damn sure better make up for it everywhere else, and that's a quarterback, a person to protect the quarterback, so more than likely a franchise tackle, a pass rusher, a receiver for the said quarterback, and a cover guy, or simply a cornerback. You could also go, in theory here, have 2 elite safeties followed by average corner play. You get the point. Of course, there are exceptions of teams that do not have all of these that have won a Super Bowl, but the Chargers have all of these and then some, and that's not an exaggeration. This started back in 2016 when they drafted a defensive end 3rd overall in Joey Bosa, and Joey, like his younger brother Nicholas, has been everything the Chargers have wanted and more. He has 58.5 sacks over his first 6 years in the league, and the only 2 seasons he did not reach double-digit sacks were in years he did not play a full then 16-game season. And he would have got to at least 10 in both of those years, as he had 5.5 in 7 games one year and 7.5 in 12 in another. Joey is a consistent force, and teams do, in a lot of ways, game plan around him. And when you watch him play on tape, he can win in every way, which obviously strikes fear in opposing offensive tackles. There's times where he'll win with speed to power. There's times where he'll dip around the edge at 280 pounds and win with speed. And then there's times where he'll throw a club like we see with interior defensive linemen and win that way. He is truly the whole package as a defensive end. And for a bonus, he talks shit and has a very aggressive mindset, which is only a positive because, you don't want a soft guy to play DN for your franchise. And what did the Chargers do in the past couple of days? They added a former Defensive Player of the Year award winner in Khalil Mack from the Bears for what in a lot of ways is a steal. And steal, you may ask or question, but Khalil is a 31-year-old football player who played 7 games last year. And what I will say is giving up a 2 and a 4 for a player who is owed over $60 million is a lot, but the Chargers would not make this trade if they couldn't afford it. Period. And like Buffalo did with Josh Allen, who have had their team featured in a video similar to this as well, and like Kansas City did with Patrick Mahomes, the Chargers are doing absolutely everything to win a Super Bowl, while Justin Herbert is paid pennies on the dollar. Because, let's face it guys, we all know what's coming. Herbert will soon receive what will probably equate to a $250 million contract, if not more. And he's earned it. But as we've all seen with quarterbacks that make the big money, it obviously limits what teams can do building around them unless they restructure pretty much every single season. And when you're in the division the Chargers are in, having to go up against Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Derek Carr, this isn't groundbreaking to say, you're going to need pass rush, and I'm glad they doubled down on it. As pass rush is like secondary help, you will never hear a coach say, we have too many corners on our roster. Well, we never have too many pass rushers on our roster either. And a perfect example of this with the pass rush is the Rams making a midseason trade to acquire Von Miller, and it paid off in a very large way as they won a ring, and who knows honestly if they win a Super Bowl without the collective efforts of Von. And there is one player I still do think the Chargers add, and that is the big man from Georgia in Jordan Davis. Davis is a humongous human being at 6'6", 340, and conveniently also ran a 4.78 40-yard dash. That's insane. That's actually effing insane. This is one of my favorite draft fits out of any of the 32 NFL teams, and he would also fill a hole on the Chargers roster. And by the way, Davis isn't the only player I love to go to the Chargers, or the possibility of going to the Chargers, as I'd also love for LA to be able to put someone like Jameson Williams on their roster as well, as that would be extremely ideal given Keenan Allen is getting up there a little bit in age, as he will be 30 years old at the start of the 2022 season, and if you're a longtime NFL fan like myself, this will make you feel old. Keenan Allen is entering his 10th NFL season. And on top of it, Keenan was never the fastest player, so to get someone with burners like Jameson Williams, who will return around the November or December area, maybe even sooner if he's lucky, as he tore his ACL in the national championship game, what's not to love if the Chargers draft him? They have weapons for their young quarterback to throw to, and they're not going anywhere. This also isn't a pass-only offense, as former UDFA or undrafted free agent Austin Eckler has become a franchise running back, and this is yet another example of why the Chargers succeed, acquiring talent through the late rounds of the draft, and even the guys that end up cut more often than not, UDFAs. Now, you can't have a roster full of undrafted free agents and have none of your first-round picks hit and hope and pray for the best, because a lot of the time, though obviously not all the time, UDFAs go undrafted for a reason. And the Chargers have hit on a lot of their first-round picks in recent years, and that's kind of putting it mildly. In fact, I don't know if there is a team that's hit on first-round picks over the past 6 years at the rate the Chargers have, starting with Joey Bosa back in 2016, Mike Williams, a multiple-time 1,000-yard receiver in 2017, the all-world safety who we haven't mentioned in today's video yet, and that's due to how good this team is in Derwin James. In 2019, I'll go ahead and give you one and say Jerry Tillery should not have been the selection, but in 2020, you draft a quarterback in Justin Herbert, who is, once in a decade's tossed around a lot now, but a very good player in Herbert, and I think he kind of makes up for the selection of Tillery, and if he doesn't, then you draft a franchise left tackle in 2021 in Rashawn Slater. Please also note they selected linebacker Kenneth Murray in 2020 as well. But the rate at which they've hit on first-round picks over the past 6 years is absolutely insane. They get a franchise defensive end, a franchise-changing safety, a good receiver, a quarterback nearly every team wishes they had, and in a lot of ways, the same can be said for their left tackle in Rashawn Slater as well. And of course, within all of this, you have to be willing to take risks, which, well, I don't think the Chargers are afraid to take those said risks. But they also recently signed corner J.C. Jackson, and that's in a lot of ways a 2-for-1 signing. You obviously reaped the benefits of the player in J.C. Jackson, while taking away, without a doubt, one of the best players on the entire Patriots roster. A team that made the postseason over the Chargers last year because they had a wild card spot. And I cannot emphasize this enough how much I love what they're doing in terms of this rebuild, because they are in a lot of ways finishing the rebuild they started back in 2020. And any time you select a quarterback in the top 5 or 10 picks, yes, it is a rebuild, and some, as we've seen over the past few years, are just a lot faster than others. They've taken a lot of risks over the past few years, like with Justin Herbert, who was truly the biggest wild card in the draft, and between hitting a grand slam or striking out, that ball was hit as square on the barrel as possible, and Herbert is one of the best players in our game today. And to address the rebuilding comment briefly, for as much as I love what the Chargers are doing, yes, they're going to have their moments, as they got their rear ends kicked last year in Baltimore by 28 points, then later in the year inexplicably lost to the Houston Texans of all teams, and by double digits at that. And again, while I love what they're doing, there's going to be a couple of games in 2022 where people are like, oh boy, they won't compete, and the same old Chargers and everything else you can think of. The 2021 Bengals, once upon a time, lost to the Bears and Jets, yet made the Super Bowl. So if the Chargers get beat next year by Houston again as they play them next year, and people click this video and say something like, "Oh, hey, how's this going?" The regular season is a marathon and not a sprint. And if I have the chance to bet on Justin Herbert, you better believe I'm doing it. Now that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it would truly mean the world. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.